For those of you that love talking about animals, from Sci News, paleontologist discovers two new species of horned dinosaurs. Dr. Nick Longrich from the University of Bath, UK, has described two new species of chasmosaurian dinosaurs that roam the lost island continent of Laramidia, a swampy subtropical setting formed when a shallow sea flooded the central region of North America during the Cretaceous about 75 million years ago. And now, from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. Welcome to Creature Guide Live Prehistoric News. Let's dive right back into the prehistoric news of the day. So it mentions that they found Chasmosaurian dinosaurs, which is referring to the group of ceratopsians in which Triceratops belonged to as well. But this still seems to be quite a distant relative. Pentaceratops aquiloniae. Well, so Pentaceratops, very familiar with this animal. However, another species of Pentaceratops sternberg, which is named after the paleontologist George Sternberg, who was the first to discover that animal. But this is a completely different species. Western North America hosted a remarkable diversity of dinosaurs during the Campanian period, the fifth of six ages of the late Cretaceous epoch. Among the most diverse groups was the Chasmosaurini. There have been quite a variety of different species of Chasmosaurin that have been discovered, including Chasmosaurus itself. And Chasmosaurus also lived close to the same time as the Pentaceratops species. Up until now, 10 Chasmosaurian species have been recognized from the Upper Campanian of Western North America, with distinct species occurring in the northern and southern parts of the continent. That's right, because Pentaceratops was found down in New Mexico. New Mexico doesn't usually come to mind when talking about, well, it's not usually talked about when referring to late Cretaceous dinosaurs. Usually, when those in the paleo community here of New Mexico and during the Mesozoic era, they think of Coelophysis, Postosuchus, the late Triassic period. But the late Cretaceous, it tends to bounce off of our head from time to time. And it's not just ceratopsian dinosaurs that have been discovered there. The long clawed therizinosaurs have been discovered here as well. Certain smaller species of Tyrannosaur, such as Zooey tyrannus, has another name as well. Now, taking a look at some of the other,
I'm sorry, but Zooey Tyrannus? That is just that's a funny name.
yeah, there's another one, but for some reason they gave it a somewhat um, Chinese sort of name, which is odd. I don't know if a Chinese paleontologist discovered it, and well, it was just natural for him to do. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the other animals existed during this time. Is this him? Yeah, it is. This skeleton has been around since at least the 80s. So this is Gorgosaurus, which is a medium-sized species of tyrannosaur that inhabited Alberta, Canada, around 76 million years ago. It reached a length of around 30 feet or 9 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 2.5 tons. Now, when looking at the growth stages of this tyrannosaur, this species ended up putting on massive bone density at a much earlier age compared to other slightly larger species of tyrannosaur. So that would refer to somewhere around 5 to 7 years of age. And they went from being very sleek and almost skinny in some instances to being a much more heavier, just built tyrannosaur. And that would also help with the bite force as well. Now, this image is from the 2013 movie Walking with Dinosaurs, which, when referring to specifically the CGI dinosaurs, they're really good. Just the overall
Wait, are
storyline
you
was,
talking about the cartoon?
yes, but the storyline terrible. But just when overall, like the look of it, and um, I think it's really not that bad. Now, with Gorgosaurus in this instance, you could probably add a lot more muscle. This one though, the I've seen this with T-Rex, on certain, uh, toys.
Well, it is a toy.
Yeah, it's a bit, puffy over here with this Gorgosaurus. Besides that, there's no evidence for there being osteoderms along the back of its body. I do not know if we have found Gorgosaurus skin remains. Now, it's not necessarily an uncommon species to find in late Cretaceous Alberta, not as common as its closest relative, Albertosaurus. Now, this is important to note because when looking at the other tyrannosaurs at the time and in North America at that point, you have Daspletosaurus, which, even though it coexisted with the animals in certain regions, it seems to be quite far off in the Tyrannosaur lineage at that point. This Gorgosaurus definitely has quite a slender look to it, though much thinner shin and ankle region, possibly a bit too much. Okay, this seems a little too skinny for the animal. There comes to a
Looks like a
point where,
chicken.
yeah, there comes to a point where for a 2.5 ton region of muscle. I mean, yes, you're including bone with that, but those are just too thin to support its weight. Now, the arms are not bad. It's interesting because you would think with these smaller tyrannosaurs, the arms would be much larger compared to their body size. Certain smaller species of tyrannosaur they were, but animals like Gorgosaurus, well, okay, they were slightly larger. I might be thinking of either Albertosaurus or Daspletosaurus. Maybe somebody mixed this up. This could be a drawing of an Albertosaurus. Now, here's another problem. There's no lips here. This might be an older picture, maybe from the early 2000s. But the arms, I don't think they're badly proportioned, like in the overall muscle. But if it's Gorgosaurus, they need to be longer. Albertosaurus, maybe not so much. The tail, you also need a lot more size. This is a very short tail. Let's see. The thighs, also there's not enough muscle. Anyway, let's head back. So, the fossilized bones of two-horned dinosaurs studied by Dr. Long Rick were previously classified as Anchiceratops and Chasmosaurus. Species known from Canada. Yes, these two are very well known, especially Chasmosaurus from Canada. I'd say Chasmosaurus, you would think that it would be the most famous Chasmosauron considering its name is Chasmosaurus, but that title belongs to Triceratops. But after reanalyzing the skeletons, he realized they more closely resembled dinosaurs from the American Southwest. One was closely related to Pentaceratops sternbergi from New Mexico. Okay, so this species that I'm familiar with, but it is a more primitive species. So I think this is supposed to represent the exterior of the frill, which is not bad. For certain specimens, we have found much more complete frills of different chasmosaurines. Now, for Pentaceratops, this creature could reach over 16 feet in length, so it wasn't extremely long ceratopsian, but this was medium size and probably weighs somewhere around 2 tons. And the interesting thing was the paleontologist, George Sternberg, that found this. I think it was back in 1922, and I believe it was over in northern Montana. He had sent this to Carl Wyman, who was the godfather of Swedish paleontology back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And he ended up naming another, Carl specifically, another species of Pentaceratops. Species isn't hitting me at the moment. The problem is it's still up for debate whether or not it's a legitimate species. And he did name another species of the long crested Parasaurolophus duckbill dinosaur and another Cretaceous hadrosaur, but it didn't have much of a crest. Anyway, let's keep going. That's interesting. I think this is the first time they give us a line, but we have no idea what the size is. Has to be huge. I mean, I'm guessing 3 feet across at least. If that seems kind of small. Considering their body size, Chasmosaurines, especially the smaller species, had very wide frills. Scientifically named Pentaceratops aquilonius, it was smaller and differed in the shape of the frill and arrangement of the hornlets on the back. The other seems to be related to the genus Cosmoceratops from Utah. Oh, okay. It seems to be a new species as well, but more complete fossils are needed to be certain. So let's take a look at somebody else. So this is not a member of the Chasmosaurian lineage. This is actually, despite him being put alongside the others, maybe this display is other centrosaurs to the opposite side of him. So, the same member of the centrosaur lineage. So, it is closely related to animals like Centrosaurus, but its close relatives, it's another species of Centrosaur. But Ionosaurus could reach somewhere around 20 feet in length and weigh somewhere around 3 tons. It was quite a heavily built species of ceratopsian. Now, it is very unique, not just due to the horn shape and the size of its frill, but more distinctively or specifically, the curved horn on the tip of its snout, which very likely could be used for easily jousting into tyrannosaurs into the region. Obviously, any dromaeosaurs that were crazy enough to attack this thing, probably trying to steal its eggs, would be just smushed. They'd probably, in fact, I wouldn't doubt during the breeding season if an Ionosaurus were to slaughter a small raptor that they would use it for decoration to attract females. And, that's very possible. Anyway, most likely though, they might have with what you see with different species of deer today, maybe even certain species of antelope, is that they would gather mud, different fallen branches, a lot of just fern debris, and use it for decoration. Um, so anyway, where was it? This animal was found over in was it Montana? I believe so. I'm just trying to hit it back. Need a source. Yes, this was Montana, discovered by Jack Horner back in 1985. The interesting thing about this animal is that I believe where it was found was also known as like Egg Creek. So there was also a species of hadrosaur called Maiasaura that was discovered in the region in clusters of eggs. The problem was the landowner ended up cutting off Jack Horner's access to it for, I don't know, a year or two, and then he finally, got access back to the site. I don't know why it occurred, but, anyway, Ionosaurus does seem to be one of the most common animals in the region, and I believe originally he wasn't even looking for ceratopsians, and all of a sudden he stumbles upon an array of Ionosaurus in the region. He was originally looking for the eggs. Anyway, let's keep going. In a paper published in the journal Cretaceous Research, Dr. Longridge proposes that distinct northern and southern provinces existed during the Campanian, but that there was exchange between them. I'm guessing this is genetic flow when it comes to the different northern and southern ceratopsian species. The dinosaurs would spread from one part of the continent to the other and then diverge to form new species. Competition between the different species then prevented the dinosaurs from moving between the northern and southern regions. It is a huge question as to whether or not these animals would have lived in somewhat harmony, like with what you see to an extent with zebras and wildebeest, or who else? Possibly like maybe cheetah deer and um, water buffalo over in India. But a lot of herbivores today, they like sticking to their own kind. Cape buffalo, you don't tend to see congregate with anybody. Um, Elephants tend to stick to their own kind. So maybe when these two animals would have met, they could have avoided each other. Um, that's a big question. So let's see, 30 centimeters. So that's a foot. No, we don't know how wide it is, but that's definitely it's not a small skull. Um, I don't know whether or not it might have been full grown.
No, that 30 centimeters is a foot?
Yeah.
Well, that means that thing is 3 feet, 4 feet?
Oh, yeah, that is true. Okay. For let's see, Penceratops, 18 feet. That's not a small skull. That's actually pretty decent. Um, what would this be? Is it the frill? Maybe. Um, let's see. Um, So, the distribution of dinosaur species was very different from the pattern seen in living mammals. In living mammals, there tend to be relatively few large species. The Pleistocene epoch or the Ice Age were like a word, and they have large ranges. With Cretaceous dinosaurs, we see a lot of large species in a single habitat. They also tend to be very regional. As you move from one habitat to another, you get a completely different set of species. Yes, this is true, but yeah, I would say these today, it's yes, you see very few large mammals, but back in the Pleistocene, Pliocene, it was a different scenario. I'd say if you go as far back as possibly the late Oligocene epoch, so pushing 25, 26 million years ago, there were quite a few large mammals on the landscape. But not to the extent I would agree with as the dinosaurs. There were several at one point. So let's take a look at another species. So this animal tends to be misportrayed in many instances. So this animal is from China, and this is Sinoceratops. It lived in the region around 76 million years ago. And if I didn't mention with Ionosaurus, this animal also exists around 75 million years ago, but over in Montana. So there should not be exposed holes in the center of its frill. Now, remembering Sinoceratops, the Ionosaurus, I believe. Okay, so I was just trying to remember the family of ceratopsians. So this is another species of centrosaur, and many species of certain species of centrosaur, and as well as chasmosaur, tend to have quite a somewhat more lightly built frills compared to later descendants, but they still weren't delicate by any means. A tyrannosaur would still have quite a bit of trouble in some areas of the frill in breaking it. Maybe on the thinner edges, but in the center, most likely it couldn't. So let's see. Now, this is Sinoceratops, so it has a bit more of a Styracosaurus sort of look. And the reason I mentioned Styracosaurus is that it um, tends to be probably one of the more well known one horned centrosaurs. So let's see. This could possibly indicate a younger individual. It has a much somewhat smaller frill compared to its body size, and then a very small horn in the front, which is very peculiar to younger centrosaur as well as chasmosaur individuals, ceratopsians in general. You could have seen this in Triceratops. Did Sinoceratops have this long of a horn? I think it's still a bit of a question. It's certainly possible, but it likely was a bit smaller. This is more of a horn shape you could see in Centrosaurus or Styracosaurus. As opposed to the overall horn structure, this is very exaggerated. It's still a good drawing. Um, I'd say when it comes to the proportions of this animal, I think it looks really good. It's just that it really should only be a handful of smaller horns around the frill. Now, Sinoceratops could reach somewhere around 20 feet in length and probably weigh around 2 tons. Now, this individual looks like a bit more of a Styracosaurus, almost like a Styracosaurus Sinoceratops hybrid, despite the two never coming into contact with each other because this animal is over in China. Oh, this looks really good. Okay. Um, it wasn't hitting me. Who was it? You would have had a wide range of somewhat, large horns around the frill. I was thinking of, I think, a Cheloceratops possibly, which has just those 2 distinct horns in the back. Sometimes you horn your Centrosaur species. It's going to happen. Anyway, this also looks good. It's got a very slender look. Maybe this is a younger individual. I do like the very, um thick horn on the tip of its snout. So this animal was probably feeding on different species of ferns. A lot of things show that it could have been a browser. So it's probably going up to younger conifer trees and just stripping off smaller branches, as well as even certain ferns. There's certain ferns. Many tend to think of the fern plants as just simply being very short um, plants, like not much taller than certain flowers, but there are some that could grow to the size of certain trees. And this animal is probably having to intake at least 130 pounds of food each day. Probably roaming in herds like 20 to 30 individuals. So let me know what your favorite species of ceratopsian or horned dinosaur is in the comments. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you love talking about animals, and share this show with everyone you know because nothing is better than all animals all the time.